He was a successful businessman, a community volunteer, and a man known for entertaining children while dressed as a clown. To neighbors, friends, and even local officials, he appeared friendly, outgoing, and trustworthy. But behind that carefully crafted image hid one of the most horrifying serial killers in American history. His name was John Wayne Gacy, and beneath his suburban home lay a secret so disturbing that it shocked the entire nation. For years he lived a double life, concealing crimes that would eventually make him known as the Killer Clown. Today we will talk about John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown who hid bodies beneath his house. So, before we start, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel. 10. A seemingly normal life to the outside world, John Wayne Gacy appeared to be the definition of the American success story. He owned a growing contracting business, employed dozens of workers, and was active in local community events. Friends and neighbors often described him as outgoing, charismatic, and hardworking. He attended social gatherings, volunteered for civic activities, and cultivated the image of a respectable businessman who cared about his community. Gacy's ability to appear normal was one of the most disturbing aspects of the case. Nothing about his public image suggested the horrors that investigators would later uncover. He blended into everyday life so effectively that few people ever questioned him. This carefully constructed facade allowed him to gain trust and avoid suspicion for years. Behind the smile, however, a much darker reality was taking shape, one that would eventually shock the entire nation. 9. The clown persona. Among the many details that made the case infamous was Gacy's role as a part-time clown. Using the characters Pogo the Clown and Patches the Clown, he performed at community events, charity functions, parades, and local celebrations. Dressed in colorful costumes and face paint, he entertained families and children, appearing cheerful and harmless. The image became deeply unsettling after his crimes were exposed. Although investigators found no evidence that he committed murders while dressed as a clown or targeted victims through those performances, the contrast between the friendly clown persona and the brutal reality of his crimes captured public attention. 8. A double life. One reason Gacy avoided detection for so long was his extraordinary ability to live two completely different lives. During the day, he managed employees, met clients, attended social functions, and interacted with neighbors. He appeared to be an ordinary businessman focused on work and family responsibilities. But according to investigators, beneath that respectable exterior existed a hidden world of manipulation, violence, and deception. 7. Victims disappeared without a trace as years passed. Numerous young men and teenage boys disappeared in the Chicago area. Families searched desperately for answers. Missing person posters were distributed, phone calls were made, and hope slowly faded as days turned into months and years. Many families lived in uncertainty, not knowing whether their loved ones were alive or dead. At the time, the disappearances seemed isolated. Different victims vanished under different circumstances, making it difficult for investigators to immediately identify a connection. 6. Suspicion begins to grow. The case began to unravel when investigators focused on the disappearance of a teenage employee named Robert Piest. Witnesses reported that Piest had mentioned speaking with Gacy shortly before he vanished. Detectives soon discovered inconsistencies in Gacy's explanations and became increasingly suspicious of his behavior. As surveillance intensified, investigators observed actions that raised even more questions. Interviews, background checks, and evidence collections slowly began painting a troubling picture. 5. The horrifying smell. For years, some people who visited Gacy's home reported strange odors coming from the property. Gacy offered explanations, blaming moisture problems, sewer issues, or other household concerns. While unpleasant, the smell alone was not enough to trigger major suspicion. However, as investigators dug deeper into the case, they began considering whether there might be a far more disturbing explanation. The odor that neighbors occasionally noticed would later become one of the many clues connected to the shocking discoveries hidden beneath the house. Looking back, what seemed like a minor detail took on a far more sinister meaning. 4. Bodies hidden beneath the house. The investigation reached a horrifying turning point when authorities obtained the evidence needed to search beneath Gacy's home. Inside the crawl space, investigators made a discovery that would become one of the most infamous crime scene findings in American history. Buried beneath the house were the remains of numerous victims. As excavation continued, the scale of the crimes became increasingly clear. What began as a missing person investigation had exposed a serial killer responsible for an extraordinary number of murders. 3. A massive recovery operation following the discovery. Law enforcement launched an extensive recovery and identification effort. Forensic specialists worked carefully through the crawl space, documenting evidence and recovering remains. The operation lasted for weeks as investigators attempted to determine the identities of victims and reconstruct the timeline of events. At the time, forensic science was far less advanced than it is today. Despite these limitations, experts devoted enormous effort to providing answers for grieving families. 2. Confession and conviction. As evidence mounted, the case against Gacy became overwhelming. Investigators gathered witness statements, physical evidence, and forensic findings that linked him directly to numerous crimes. Eventually, Gacy confessed to many of the murders, providing details that confirmed investigators' worst fears. The trial attracted intense public attention. Evidence presented in court revealed the full extent of the crimes and the suffering endured by the victims and their families. 1. A case that shocked the world. What continues to make the John Wayne Gacy case so disturbing is the contrast between appearance and reality. He was not a mysterious stranger hiding in isolation. He was a businessman, a neighbor, and a familiar face within his community. For years, he successfully projected an image of normalcy while secretly committing some of the most horrific crimes in American history. The discovery of dozens of victims beneath his own home transformed the case into one of the most infamous serial murder investigations ever recorded. It forced investigators, communities, and the public to confront an uncomfortable truth: dangerous individuals do not always fit expected stereotypes. What do you think about our video? Let me know in the comments below. Before you go, leave a like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.